Hey class, Alec here. Today we're going to talk about the production possibility frontier. The PPF describes the outputs that can be produced in a given time period with available resources and technology. I like the general functional form. The way I like to say this is the outputs you can produce now depend on the inputs and technology that the economy has now. I'm going to underline this keyword right here. Oops. Now. Similarly, I'm going to look at this subscript 1. The outputs that an economy can produce at time period 1 depend on the land, labor, capital, and technology at time period 1. Both of these general functional forms rely on given. When you see given, that means ceteris paribus. So now stop and think about this. We're building a model that is basically going to explain everything that we talked about with the scarcity definition of economics and a little background regarding that modeling, ceteris paribus, efficiency, scarcity, and trade-offs. So let's look at what you'll see typically in textbooks. It's called the guns versus butter debate. We're going to have the numbers arrayed in a table or a matrix. It's called the production possibility schedule. You have the numbers down here, and it says we have various combinations of output that the economy can produce. G is the guns, B is butter. Notice what happens here. We can start at the very, very top and say if society devotes all of its resources into production of guns, it can produce no butter. Likewise, we can go all the way down to the bottom. If society devotes all of its resources to production of butter, it will have no guns. Now you can clearly see these numbers are working inversely. That is to say that this relationship here is a negative relationship. I'll talk more about that in a second. But let's take this information here and let's plot the points. We had our first point there, 15 and 0. We had our bottom point here, 0 and 5. For completeness, we can come up here and go 14, 1, 12, 2, 9, 3, and then 5 and 4. Now we have 6 discrete points. What we want to do in the model is we want to draw our functional form like that. And now we have our production possibility frontier at time period 1 or with a given set of assumptions 1. Now notice what happens here. We can see the negative slope here. It's nonlinear, clearly, but it's also a negative slope. What does that negative slope represent? It represents trade-offs. It represents the notion of opportunity costs. What does that mean? It means that if society wants more of what's on the vertical axis, it has to give up what's on the horizontal. Likewise, if it wants more of what's on the horizontal, it has to give up whatever is reported on the vertical axis. So I can say here, if you have a change in G up, you're going to have a change in B down. If you have a change in B up, you're going to have a change in G down. These are trade-offs, opportunity costs. Notice what else this is describing. Can an economy get to, let's just put a star outside here. Can an economy get to a point outside the PPF? And the answer is no. Why? We'll just describe this as not attainable. The reason why is because you are limited by your land, labor, capital, and technology that you have now. Okay? So every economy is facing these limits. We'll look at situations, we'll talk about farmers and students in an upcoming lecture, and they face the very same limits. Everybody says there's only 24 hours in a day. Well, that's your constraint. How are you going to best use those 24 hours? Notice what else happens here. I'll go with purple and I'll put a point inside at 1 and 9. And what the points inside the curve mean? These are inefficient. How do you know? Because you could get more of both if you simply did it right. Specifically, this is going to be technical inefficiency. You can get more output if you better utilize your resources. So now we've got points outside, points inside, and points along the curve. This is the production possibility frontier, and it's describing all of these things. So now notice before I end this lecture, one of the things I didn't talk about is efficiency. You want to, if points inside the curve are inefficient, then points along the curve are efficient. Everything along this production possibility frontier represents an efficient outcome. And this is where society desires to move. We were here, the U.S. economy, stop and think about this. The U.S. economy, before the coronavirus hit, was operating at a point on right along the production possibility frontier. And then what happened? The coronavirus hit, caused we had to do social distancing to try to slow the spread of the virus. Many millions of people lost their job, and what happened then is that we shifted to a point inside the production possibility frontier. We'll talk more about the PPF and economic growth in the next lecture. Thanks. Bye.